This is the FlipNerd.com Expert Real Estate Investing Show, the show for real estate investors, whether you're a veteran or brand new. I'm your host, Mike Hambright, and each week I bring you a new expert guest that will share their knowledge and lessons with you. If you're excited about real estate investing, believe in personal responsibility, and taking control of your life and financial destiny, you're in the right place. Hey, this is episode number 381, and my guest today is Don Costa. Now, one great way to learn the real estate investing industry is from others that have come before you. Don had a thriving business and lost it all during the last market downturn. After struggling with what to do next and after licking his wounds a bit, he picked himself up and refocused on what he knew best, real estate investing. Now, over the past few years, Don has built a more successful and a more profitable business than ever before. He's going to share his lessons learned. Today, Don is going to share how to navigate the ups and downs of the market, how to build a business that can weather the storms you're facing, whether it's expanding and growing your business or just getting started in your real estate investing business. Let's go ahead and get the show started. Please help me welcome Don Costa to the show. Hey, Don, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, great to have you. So for those of you listening right now, we're actually doing back-to-back shows here today. Don's going to be on our show, obviously, right now. And then I'm going to be on his show. We'll talk a little bit about his podcast throughout this, I'm sure. So, hey, man, I'm excited to talk about what your lessons learned through real estate investing. This is going to through kind of the last downturn and putting the pieces back together because, as I mentioned to you, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, too. People say things like, well, where are we at in the market? Or are we about to, if we hit the top? And like, I have no idea. Like, I don't have a crystal ball. But I think probably the best real estate investors are spending less time thinking about or trying to figure out when a market correction is going to happen. But they're spending a lot more time focused on what they're going to do when the correction happens to try to take advantage of the opportunity. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely our focus is just being prepared when it happens because you never know for sure what's going to trigger it, right? So definitely. You
never know. Yeah, and I was joking with you right before we started recording that, hey, you're in California, so you'll know before a lot of the rest of us will.
That's true. We feel some impacts, especially in my market. I can always tell when there's changes because you'll have people from LA and the Bay Area start buying in our market pretty consistently when their markets start to peak or change. So.
Yeah. Cool. Well, these are going to be great lessons because I think there's a lot of people that listen to my show that are new or newer. And we have a lot of veteran folks too, just because we have guys like you and ladies too. I always catch myself saying guys, a lot of guys in this business, but plus I'm from the Midwest. So I say, hey guys, what's up guys? How's it going guys? So anyway, but yeah, so the truth is there's a lot of people that are listening to the show that have varying levels of experience in this business. And I think it's important to learn from guys like you that are veterans that have been through a couple cycles before, maybe have some arrows in your back and you kind of learned the hard way. I always say the best way to learn is from somebody else's experience if you can.
That's true. There are those of us, though, that have to go out there and fail a little bit on our own, you know, to really have that lesson sink in. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, hey, before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you, Don, and how you got into this business?
Okay, so I got into this business in 2003 officially. I think I circled it for a number of years before that. I had listened to Carlton Sheets and Russ Whitney and you name it. And, I even put out some offers on some properties in the past and didn't know what to do with them. This is before wholesaling was like a big thing. You know, people really knew what wholesaling was. I got a property tied up in contract, couldn't get it funded, ended up backing out, ended up selling for almost $8,000 more than I had it in contract for. I think that was my kind of aha moment at that time. But so I circled, right? And then a few years later, I was interviewing at a mortgage company and the gentleman asked me why I was there. And I told him that I was really there to learn the finance side because I wanted to be a real estate investor. And he leaned across the table and said, go find some properties and I'll put the money up. And so I did. I went out there and realized I had a knack for, getting people to sell me their property. And at that point it was game on. So.
That's cool. And so in those early days, how were you generating leads? Because we always talk about how critical leads are. And a lot of times newer real estate investors, they have to go through some experiences to kind of learn that lesson of you can't just want to buy houses. You have to figure out how to generate leads to get those houses. So
I was door knocking. I was doing NOD. NOD list was what I was working off of, and I don't know. I try to think back, was direct mail a big thing? I know there wasn't all the internet stuff and the shiny object, cool stuff and the automation.
Yep.
So it was just really just getting in my car and just driving for 3 or 4 hours a day and knocking on doors. And I was really OCD about it. Like, I had to hit the list before I quit. And, I do it consistently. And if I can get you to have a conversation with me, when you're going to sell your house, I got to a point where it was going to be me that bought it. And I think I learned one of the most important lessons at that point too, that, being there to solve problems, to truly be there to solve problems was huge. Rapport was huge, building rapport and really getting to the person's why was huge. And then follow up. I almost never got a deal on the first knock. I usually had to go back 3 or 4 or 5 times before I ended up getting a deal. So, I mean, those are 3 important takeaways that I gained from that part of my business that I think is still true today.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. I always love, like, you either have it in you to door knock or you don't. And
right.
For as powerful as that is, I have never been the one to just go randomly knock on doors, even though I teach people the importance of that, especially if you're starting without a lot of money. If you can't afford direct mail, if you can't afford to do stuff online, but you got that fire in your belly to get started, you got to drive for dollars. You got to figure out how to knock on doors or put out door hangers or whatever it might be. So. Mm-hmm. And just to clarify for people, that NOD, that's a notice of delinquency or disclosure, people that are behind on payments, essentially.
In our state, it's notice of default. NOD is notice of default, and NTS is notice of trustee sale.
Yep.
In our state, so I know we're a non-judicial state, so probably a little different, but those are essentially it's just somebody in pre-foreclosure or foreclosure.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's talk about some of the lessons learned. I know you kind of break your investing career up into kind of before the last market downturn and after. So maybe kind of explain that a little bit more.
So I got into it in 2003. If anybody remembers what the market was like back then, it was just crazy. I mean, it was appreciation in pretty much every market. You could buy, you can get just about any loan. Anybody, you could be a busboy making $8 an hour and get a loan on a house for $500,000 because of the picket payment and the, all the crazy stuff that was going on. So it was like the wild, wild west. And I always describe it as, you could throw a rock at a house and make money. And so I had, in loose terms, I had a business. I had started a property management company, real estate company. I was doing flipping, development, you name it. And we could buy a house, renovate the house, and resell it, make a ton of money without having systems or structures. So if I went 20 grand over budget and I was in the project 2 months longer than I was supposed to, I would probably end up making 20 or 30,000 more in profit than I anticipated because the market appreciation was nuts. Yeah. And what it did for me, and I think what it did for a lot of people, was it created a very false sense of security. And, I had essentially developed this ego that I thought that everything I touched turned to gold and that I was the reason why my company was making money. What I didn't realize at the time is I had this sinking ship that was, staying afloat because so much money was coming in so fast, but it was also going out just as fast. In that flow of money just was never ending, and I thought it was never going to end. And so I figured I could do everything I wanted to do. I started working on a sunglass line and a restaurant, and I just thought that it was never going to end. And then one day, it did. Yeah, it came crashing down. So. So I described that as like, the Gravitron ride at the fair where you're just pinned up against the wall and there's nothing you can do about it. That's what it was like. I mean, I had so many holes in my ship that became apparent and there was nothing I could do about it. I mean, I didn't have the right people in place. I didn't have the right processes in place. And there was just nothing I could do about it. Over the next couple of years, I just proceeded to lose everything essentially.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so what was that time period? What was that, like 07, 08? Are you looking to change your life through real estate investing? If you're interested in either getting started or taking your business to the next level, please check out FlipNerd's private program at theinvestormachine.com. This is the most robust real estate investor coaching, networking, and mastermind on the planet and designed for your success. If you're ready to roll up your sleeves, ready to take personal responsibility for your own success, and ready to dive into a world-class instructional coaching program that provides you step-by-step instruction to help you achieve financial freedom, then you should apply today. Spaces are limited and candidates are only considered after an application and interview process. Our 12-month investor program is unparalleled. Think you might be a fit? Learn more today at theinvestormachine.com. That's crazy. And so what was that time period? What was that, like 07, 08?
Basically about 09 to 08, middle of 08 to 10. We had opened the restaurant nightclub in the beginning of 08. And when the market crashed, I think I did what most people do. I went into survival mode, and I just focused on what I had left that I felt like I could hold together, which was that restaurant.
Yeah.
And which we opened at the beginning of the worst economy ever. And so I kind of dug my head in the sand and tried to keep that alive. And we ended up closing that in 2011. We ended up kind of throwing in a towel on that. But I just, I went broke. The restaurant did good, but we fought with the city, and we had other issues that we don't need to get into here about whether or not we could use conditional use permits and different things to operate that we wanted to operate, and so at the end of the day, when we closed that, I had literally had no money. I was going to the gas station and buying gas with quarters, a gallon at a time.
Wow, man.
No money. I had 2 kids and a wife, and I just in my head, I was holding it together, and I thought I was doing a good thing holding it together, but really I was full of myself. I was broke. Yeah, that's
crazy. So and I know you got through it. So we're gonna hear the success side of that story. So you like Rudy, I don't know why I thought of that. But hey, the interesting thing. This is one thing that I love about a lot of people that I know, people like you that have been through difficult times. Or, you start to build up. There's a fine line between confidence and maybe ego sometimes, right?
Right.
But sometimes when you're confident and you've had a successful business, as long as your ego doesn't take over, which it does, it has for me, it has for a lot of people sometimes. One of the things that I love about when you become an entrepreneur is that, I genuinely feel this. If you have run a decent business, even if you're not like the best at everything, but you've got that fire in your belly that success is the only option you're willing to choose. Even if you fail, it's like, give me a year and I'll be back again. You could figure out how. Now, ego can get in the way.
Right.
Sometimes when you think that it was everybody else other than you or whatever. I'm not saying that necessarily you did that, but I hope the people that are listening to this can appreciate. When you build a skill set like you can in this business, that's something you can keep with you forever, and you're going to have ups and downs, but Don's going to share some more of his kind of lessons learned. So before you kind of tell us like some of what you've built back up now, I mean, maybe you could continue just to share from that point when you started to put the pieces back together, what some of your bigger lessons were.
Well, ego gets in the way and fear gets in the way, right? I mean, fear is a huge aspect of any business that I think, and it's a huge aspect of life that you can either use as a motivator or you can use as a deterrent, right? And for me, I always say when you're brand new in this business, you have a certain naivety. It's not a bad thing. It's just I can conquer the world and no one can stop me naivety that I had when I first got started, and I didn't have once I lost everything. And I had thought that real estate was, had failed me, that basically it had taken me down. And the reality now, I look back on it and my ego and my arrogance and my lack of really running a business like a business is what took me down. And so in putting it back together, I would love to say that I just, I had the strength to see that I could build again. But really, I got to a point where I had no options. Like, I was playing, Russian roulette with the water getting turned off and the power getting turned off. And, I was going to the grocery store with calculator. And I had this moment I've shared a few times where I took my family to Taco Bell with what I thought was the last $90 I had on my card. And I was going to do lunch and a movie because we hadn't done anything as a family for a while. My kids were like 5 and 6 at the time. And the card got declined when I was trying to pay for the lunch. And I had no other options. I actually had to cancel the order and collect my family and walk out of Taco Bell. And for me, I was hustling. I was holding it together. I was going to make it. I was good at, because I was just good at being broken. I had this pride about being good at being broken. And I thought, it's fine. I got thick skin, no big deal. And my son, as we're walking out to the car, asked me why the mean guy wouldn't give us our food. And that was my breaking point, where I realized that I was hiding with my head in the sand and I was failing my family. And I took an assessment of myself and I realized that the one thing that I was really good at was identifying a deal and raising private money. I was really good at doing that, putting a deal together. And I had no excuse. I had to go out there. I had to do it. I wasn't able to get a job. I was trying to get a job, but no one, if you remember back then, no one was hiring.
Yeah.
I had an associate's degree, but no bachelor. So the jobs I was qualified for wouldn't give me a job because I had no bachelor. And the ones I wasn't qualified for, basically, or what I was overqualified for, they wouldn't give me a job because they felt like I was going to leave.
Yeah.
And I had no choice. And so I put it out on Craigslist looking for some private money, and I had 6 people call, and one person that I ended up having coffee with, and he agreed to back me, JV with me, and I went out and found a deal, and it was on again.
Yeah. So, and what year was that, Don?
2012.
2012, yeah.
2012.
And the interesting thing is, like, in hindsight, you wish 2012 was back again from the standpoint of finding deals, I suspect, right?
I wish I would have had the guts to start back up in 2009.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had the guts to start back up in 2009 or 10. But yeah, I wish I was back in 2012 as well. So
yeah, I mean, I know it's different in every market around the country, but right now, like, some of us are like, I don't say this because I wish anybody like that. I don't wish everybody well, but man, I would love to have love to have another downturn during that time frame with, of course, with what you know now. But even if we say hindsight's 2020, but the reality is we're going to have cycles like that in the real estate business again, whether we want them to or not. That's just the reality of this industry, right?
Yeah, it's a reality. I don't know if we'll ever have one like that in our lifetime, but there'll definitely be cycles. There's always the ebb and flow, right? The peaks and valleys. Right. But whether or not it'll be catastrophic again, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, yeah. So for folks that are listening right now that are fearful of what you just said, I mean, they should, not to put fear in anybody, but just talk about the positive side of that, about how if you had it to do over again, or if somebody that's listening right now that hasn't been through that, the lessons they can learn to go apply that to their business today.
Well, if I had, if I was running my business like a business the first time around, and I had been smart about managing money and cash flow and capital reserves and all that cool stuff like we do now, I would have been in a position to take advantage of the downturn. And if I would have been in that position, I think mentally and financially take advantage of that downturn, we'd be in a whole different place right now. I don't even know if we'd be having a conversation. I'd probably be on a beach somewhere, because there was so much money made in that opportunity that presented itself. Really, it was an opportunity for people, and I just wasn't in a place. And so, I mean, the difference now for me is I keep capital reserves. The money doesn't flow out as fast as it comes in. I pay myself a paycheck. I don't just go out and blow the money. Everything in my office I own, from the copier to the desk chair. I drive a 2012 GMC pickup truck I bought 2 years old, and I paid cash for. Before I leased, I leased BMWs, and so the difference is I've put some foundational stuff in my life, belief systems and practices that, no matter what happens in the economy, you're not going to shake me, number one. And number two, I'm going to be prepared to take advantage of whatever comes my way because of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of those things that you've mentioned a couple times, having the right people. And so maybe share, like, before the downturn, I presume, because I've heard you say a couple things about this, that you probably thought that all the important things, you had to do, or you probably didn't give people as much flexibility or room to run with things as maybe you do now, because you thought you were the guy, right? Am I picking up on that right? Or
pretty much, yeah. And I don't think I valued the people that I did have in my organization at the time for what they were, their value was, and what their strengths were.
Right.
And that's in building the team this time, I was looking for people who could run that whatever portion of the organization that they were in charge of. They could truly run it. And in doing that, I hired the person first, right? Like, my project manager was a great manager. He was hardworking and loyal, but he wasn't a construction guy. And I knew I could teach him construction. And so I invested that time and effort in developing him. And now he's a better project manager than I can ever be. The same thing with our bookkeeper, assistant, transaction coordinator gal in the office. We trained her into that position. And she said something to me just recently. I asked her, I said, what is it that truly makes you successful in this organization? What do you feel we have done that gives you the opportunity to succeed? And she said, she kind of sat and thought about it, and she goes, you empowered me to make my own decisions. You empowered me to make decisions in this organization.
Yeah.
And that was huge. It's a huge takeaway. We empowered them to think and to fail. I allow them, most managers are so critical of somebody failing that they're afraid to let go and they become a bottleneck in their organization.
Yep.
Which is kind of how I am, right? But I let go. I went against my own nature and I let go and I let them make decisions. I let them fail. And because that's how you're going to learn, right? And I pick them up, I dust them off. We have a conversation about the mistake and they don't make the mistake again. And that's just a huge significant change in how I run my business now from back then. I think maturity is part of it, but I think necessity is the other part of it.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, I honestly, I think that there's so many real estate investors that struggle with this because a lot of times we started as a one-man band or a one-woman band.
Right.
We're like doing everything, on a shoestring budget. And then you get to a point to where you can't do it all and you know it. So you start to justify the expense to bring people in. But then we have such a hard time letting go of the reins to say, you take it. We're still there have been so many times in my business where it's like I have a whole team of people out here doing things or available to do things. And I feel like I'm the busiest guy here. And it's like, well,
right.
Wait. Why is there not enough time in a day for me, but my team is asking me for more to do? Like, that's a problem.
Yeah. And that's being able to delegate. I think one of the biggest challenges too, for those are entrepreneurs and we started as solopreneurs and all that is being able to articulate what that position is or what we need off of our plate or, and I actually had to say, don't call me with your question, make the decision and we'll deal with the aftermath if it's a mistake. Don't put it on my desk, I had to tell investors, don't call me, call Cass with whatever issues, because what happens, we still want to control that. And so when it comes across our email or gets put on our desk or we get a call with a question, we want to control it. And then we end up, outworking our entire team, right.
Yeah.
And being overwhelmed. So it's really letting go on a scale of, I don't know how to describe it, but it's letting go, and it's really against my better nature because I am a control freak.
Yeah.
But
me too.
It's the best thing I ever did. It's absolutely the best thing I ever did, and it's so rewarding to see my team excel because some of them are better at whatever it was than I could ever have been, and I wouldn't have saw that if I wouldn't let go.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the importance of systems. I mean, I know over the past few years there have been some awesome CRMs and functionality that have come out. I mean, gosh, it wasn't even when I started 2008, so not even 10, almost 10 years ago, we were still doing stuff with manila folders and like my sales guys would have to come in and pick up their folders for the day and stuff like that. And of course, now we do all that in the cloud with iPads and laptops and stuff, but just technology obviously has changed dramatically in the last 10 years in every industry. But I think, my belief was always when I came into real estate, because I worked for a startup e-retailer, online retailer before that. And it was like the real estate industry has historically been like 5 years behind like other technology. Mm-hmm. But I think also when we're new as like solopreneurs, especially in the real estate investing industry, sometimes we're just, guys have legal pads and their cell phone and they're out doing stuff without a lot of technology. But when you start to build a team and you start to grow your business, you've got to have some systems and processes in place. So anyway, talk about a little bit about how that changed for you from your first round to your second round.
Well, systems can be technological or they can just be, common practices, right? Essentially a system is a boundary. It's a box with which your team kind of operates within. And your team can be contractors, vendors, your internal team, but you're just setting boundaries. And so obviously a system is a CRM when it comes to acquisitions like Podio and how they manage that. But it can also be something like our project manager has to see every project and confirm the budget before we close. That's a system. And when you skip a system, you run into problems. Like my acquisitions guy came to me and swore that a rehab on a project was going to be $30,000 and we can go ahead and close. And we skipped the step where the project manager has to see it to confirm the budget and end up being a $65,000 rehab.
Oh, wow.
So it could be something as simple as that. This happens, that happens. That's a system.
Yeah.
Another system we use in our organization is how we pay our contractors. So we require our contractors to bill us this Friday for the work they're going to complete the following Friday. And then basically our gal comes in on Monday. She cuts all the checks. She takes and copies the check stubs and the invoices. She sends them to our private money lenders for reimbursement. Our private money lenders reimburse us the capital by Thursday. And then Friday, as long as the contractor's finished that work, he comes in and picks up his check Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
So that system, it requires our contractors to set a goal for which we're going to hold them accountable for. It requires my gal to come in and complete the books so we know what our capital requirements are for the week. We have transparency with our investors because they see everything we're going to be paying out for that week. We get their money in before we put it out. So that's a cash flow management process. So you see how that one system starts knocking all these little dominoes down,
right,
and managing all these things in our business. So it could be something as complicated as that. So, but it's really, I think, defining kind of the flow, the workflow of your organization. And each, everybody's going to run their business a little bit different, but it's just setting boundaries and defining that workflow and then holding everybody to that. That essentially is how I look at systems.
Yep. And I guess I know you did it very differently before the last downturn, but
right.
For so many folks, obviously, if you have a mentor or a coach, people, I mentor and coach a lot of people, so I help them with what you just talked about, putting the systems and processes in place. In fact, we give them our systems. But if you don't have that, like, how do you learn how to kind of get those things in place if you've never done it before?
That's a fantastic question because, I would listen to, when I put this together, podcast and real estate podcasts are starting to become a thing. And I would hear people talk about systems, but they weren't, they didn't really say what a system was. Right. And I would try to find a course at that time back in 2012 where they could just drive it to my driveway and drop a load of systems off. Right. But it wasn't really there. So, I just, like I said, I kind of defined it in my head. What does it mean to me? And it just, setting boundaries, processes, and procedures, and then kind of laying out those guidelines. The if this then that kind of thing. Yeah. And it's not overly. It's really good if somebody has a roadmap. Like if you're outlining somebody, the system somebody should use. That's definitely something somebody should be grabbing a hold of and running with because it's definitely going to save them time.
Right.
But if you don't have those resources, it's just creating a roadmap for within which your organization is going to operate, right? Yeah. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. There's definitely, you got to do the work, but there's some simplicity in it too.
Yeah. I think sometimes if after you start doing deals, you really don't have to worry about it a whole lot until you start doing deals, and maybe that's one of the challenges that some new real estate investors have is, or even new business owners, they want everything to be perfect and have all the systems and processes in place before they've even started. And so, but I think one of the challenges, or one thing to do is just kind of sit down and document what you're doing right now. And sometimes, when you're doing it yourself, you don't really think about all the little details you do. But if you were to just write out every painstaking step, like if you had to tell somebody how to do it over a cell phone, like do this. Oh, I forgot like these 3 things. And you like write down those 3 things and you look at it. Then sometimes you just stand back and you're like, wait, why are we doing that? Like, why don't we make this whole thing easier? And so sometimes just like kind of document what you're doing, right? And think about it and say, does that make sense that, we do these things and then we do these other things? And does that even make sense, to an average person if I had to explain it? So.
Yeah, I mean, my system for paying contractors came out of the fact that I was running back to the office to write multiple checks every day because somebody was demanding their payment for work completed. Yeah. And I got to a point where I actually basically hated this business for a little while because I was overwhelmed with all these things. And I'm like, there's got to be a process, so I'm just going to define these rules. I mean, it's that too, it's a combination of a lot of things that I think come together. So,
yeah. So Don, if for folks that are listening to us right now, near the end of the year in 2017, hard to believe that I'm saying that it's at that time of year already. But if folks are listening right now and they want to get started and they're afraid, some people think, well, the market's too hot. I'm going to wait for it to cool down. Some people think, well, this is a great time to get in. Whatever they may think about, what are some of the things you would suggest from your lessons learned to kind of get started in their business?
Well, I can tell you right now that I got started originally in what was probably one of the hottest markets, back in 2003, 2004. And hot market or cold market, I don't think that should be a deterrent to whether or not you get started. If you got the ability to put your head down and go to work, just go out there and go to work. Now, I got started in 2012 with no money, and I couldn't buy postcards and I couldn't do that kind of stuff. So what I did was I networked heavily. OPM, right? Other people's marketing.
Yeah.
I would use that. I would call Craigslist posts. I would call bandit signs. I would introduce myself. That's how I met Matt. We talked about Matt in the beginning of the episode before we started recording. Matt and I do a lot of business together in my market. He wholesales a lot of stuff to me, and I met him calling one of his Craigslist posts. So I got a couple agents that work for me in my office now that I met, through networking back when I first got started. Either I posted something on Craigslist or I was responding to something. And so networking is huge. And networking isn't just getting business cards, because nobody calls those, right? It's not, hey, let me get your card. Great. Nice to meet you. No, it's, hey, nice to meet you. How can I add value to your business? Let me take you to lunch or coffee. Let's have a conversation about how we can do things together. And then building relationships. And that's how I got my business going in 2012. That's how I started doing deals. And I would say somewhere around 50% of the volume we do now comes from that network that I built originally when I was broke and had no other options. So I think in this market right now, that's going to be a huge component because, let's be honest, direct mail can be saturated in some markets. And if you're getting out there and you're door knocking or you're networking and you're putting in a little bit more effort, you're going to have a lot more success with getting properties. It's just find out, kind of where your skill set is in that aspect of it. Is it getting on the phone and calling direct to seller? Is it getting on the, in your car and door knocking? Is it going out there and meeting people? But I think making the effort right now is a really good place to start.
Yeah, that's great. That's great information. So Don, tell us a little bit about your show. Folks that want to maybe learn more and after they're done listening to us here, go over and listen to your show. Where would they go? Tell us about your show.
So I have a show called Flip Talk. We started October 2016. I don't really, I can't really answer why I started it. I think I just enjoyed being on some podcast, and I wanted to stay in my office and stay kind of in the business as my business went on autopilot, and it's taken off. It's been a lot of fun. I've gotten to talk to really cool people like yourself, and I've gotten to learn some things and share some things, and it's just been a wild ride. So a lot of great interviews. You'll definitely be on there, and I'm sure we'll be dropping some good nuggets on that one.
Yeah, awesome. Well, if folks want to learn more about it, where do they go?
You can go to fliptalk.com and you can check it out, or you can find it on iTunes and Stitcher and every other place out there, iHeartRadio. You can reach out to me at don@fliptalk.com, and I always answer my emails, and I'll point you in the right direction from there as well. Awesome.
Well, everybody, I appreciate you being with us today. This is episode number 381 with Don Costa. I got to tell you, it's really important to follow people. Like Don said, I think it's true that you have to learn. Most people, me included, you have to learn from your own mistakes by doing things. But I think following guys like Don or a lot of people we've had on the show here before can help you accelerate your kind of learning cycle to grow. So out of 381 episodes, we only have 380 more for you to go listen to if you just started listening to us. So if you are new to the show, thanks for being here. We appreciate you. I'd love it if you could go out to iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, YouTube, wherever you listen to or watch this show at, and subscribe and give us some positive feedback. We'd appreciate that. That's the fuel that keeps us going. So, Don, thanks again for being with us today.
All right. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. And everybody go check out fliptalk.com, listen to Don's show, and go out and give us some love. If you would, that'd be great. We'll see you on another upcoming episode. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the FlipNerd.com Investing Show. If you're not yet an elite member of FlipNerd, you're missing out. We have tons of great training, including a new detailed masterclass published each month and live training webinars with experts twice a month. Plus, you'll get access to all of our archives, where we already have a growing library of masterclasses and other training videos. Elite members also get membership in our incredible online mastermind group, where many of the top real estate investors from across the country, including many of the hundreds of guests I've had on the show in the past, are already members. Whether you're brand new, looking to get started, or a veteran, you simply must join today. I promise you won't be disappointed. To learn more or join today, please visit flipnerd.com/lab. That's flipnerd.com/lab. See you on the next show.